Well, my name is Steve Rockey. I'm a councilman in Friendswood, and I'm going to read to you today a book called Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, and it's by Rudyard Kipling, and it's available in the Friendswood Library. I really love this story because it's set in India, and my dad grew up in India. And when I was a kid, he used to read this story to me and my siblings all the time. So this is Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, and we'll start. This is the story of the great war that Rikki-Tikki-Tavi fought, all by himself through the English family's house in India. Rikki-Tikki-Tavi was a mongoose, with fur and a tail like a cat and a head like a weasel. One day, a summer flood washed him out of the burrow where he lived with his father and mother and floated him kicking and clucking down a roadside ditch. He found a stick floating near him, and he held on to it until he fainted. When he revived, he was lying in the middle of a garden path, very wet indeed, and a little boy was saying, "Here's a dead mongoose, let's have a funeral." "No," said his mother, "let's take him in and dry him, perhaps he isn't really dead." They took him into the house where a big man picked him up and said he wasn't dead, just tired. So they wrapped him in cotton and warmed him over a little fire, and he opened his eyes and sneezed. And this is a mongoose. "Now," said the big man, who was the boy's father, "don't frighten him and we'll see what he'll do. It's the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he is full of curiosity from nose to tail. The motto of the mongoose family is, 'Go and find out,' and Rikki-Tikki was true mongoose. He looked at the cotton and decided it wasn't good enough to eat. Ran around the table, sat up, scratched himself, then jumped on the boy's shoulder. 'Don't be frightened, Teddy,' said his father. 'That's the way he's making friends.' 'He tickles,' said Teddy. Rikki-Tikki snuffled in the boy's ear, climbed down to the floor, and sat there rubbing his nose. 'Is he so tame that we helped him?' asked Teddy's mother. 'All mongooses are like that,' said the husband. 'If Teddy doesn't pick him up by the tail, he'll run in the house all day long. Let's give him something to eat.' They gave him a little piece of raw meat, which Rikki-Tikki liked immensely. 'There are more things to find out in this house,' he said, 'than all my family could find out in their whole lives. I shall certainly stay and find out.' He spent the day roaming around the house. He nearly drowned in the bathtub, put his nose in the ink on the desk, and burned it on the end of the big man's cigar. When Teddy went to bed, Rikki-Tikki climbed up too. Teddy's mother and father came in before they went to bed, and Rikki-Tikki was awake on the pillow. 'I don't like this,' said Teddy's mother. 'He might bite.' 'He won't,' said Teddy's father. 'Teddy's safer with the little animal than he is with a watchdog. If a snake came into the room,' but Teddy's mother wouldn't even think of something so awful. Early in the morning, Rikki-Tikki came to breakfast on the porch, riding on Teddy's shoulder, and they gave him a banana and some boiled eggs, and he sat on their laps while they talked to one another. Then Rikki-Tikki went out in the backyard to see what was to be seen. It was a large yard with rose bushes as big as houses, lime and orange trees, and clumps of bamboo. Rikki-Tikki scuttled up and down the garden, snuffling here and there, until he heard a very sad voice in the thorn bush. It was Darzy, the tailor bird, and his wife. They had made a beautiful nest by pulling together two big leaves and stitching up the edges, and had filled the inside with fluff. 'What's the matter?' asked Rikki-Tikki. 'We are miserable,' said Darzy. 'One of our babies fell out of the nest yesterday, and Nag ate him.' 'Said Rikki-Tikki. 'That's very sad, but I'm a stranger here. Who is Nag?' Darzy and his wife cowered down in the nest without answering. For the thick grass at the foot of the bush there came a low hiss, a horrible, cold sound. Then inch by inch, out of the grass rose the head of Nag, the big cobra. He was 5 feet long from tongue to tail. Then he lifted 1/3 of himself clear off the ground, and he swayed like a dandelion tuft in the wind. And he looked at Rikki-Tikki with the wicked snake's eyes that never changed their expression, whatever the snake may be thinking. 'Who is Nag?' he said. 'I am Nag. Look and be afraid.' Rikki-Tikki was afraid for a minute, but it's impossible for a mongoose to stay frightened for very long. Rikki-Tikki had never met a live cobra before, but his mother had fed him dead ones, and he knew the mongoose's job is to fight and eat snakes. Nag knew that too, and at the bottom of his cold heart, he was afraid. There's Nag, the cobra. Well, Rikki-Tikki, I'm looking, but do you think it's right for you to eat baby birds? Nag was watching for a moment in the grass behind Rikki-Tikki. He knew that mongooses in the garden met death sooner or later for him and his family. He dropped his head a little and said, "Let's talk. You eat eggs. Why shouldn't I eat birds?" "Behind you, look behind you," said Darzy. Rikki-Tikki jumped in the air as high as he could go, and just under him whizzed the head of Nagina, Nag's wicked wife. She had crept up behind him as he was talking to kill him, and he heard her hiss as the stroke missed. He came down almost across her back and bit, but he didn't bite long enough, and he jumped away from the whisking tail, leaving Nagina torn and angry. "Wicked, wicked Darzy," said Nag, lashing as high as he could, reaching toward the nest, but Darzy had built it out of reach of the snakes. Rikki-Tikki felt his eyes getting hot and angry, and he sat on his tail and hind legs like a little kangaroo and chattered with rage. But Nag and Nagina had disappeared into the grass. Rikki-Tikki did not follow them, for he did not feel he could manage 2 snakes at once. So he trotted off the gravel path near the house and sat down. Rikki-Tikki was just a young mongoose, and he was very pleased that he had managed to escape from an attack from behind. When Teddy came running down the path, Rikki-Tikki was ready to be petted. But just as Teddy was leaning down, something squirmed in the dust, and a teen voice said, "Be careful, I am Death." It was Karate, the little brown snakeling that lies in the dusty ground in India and whose bite is as dangerous as a cobra's. Rikki-Tikki's eyes grew angry again, and he danced up to Karate with a strange rocking and swaying motion that he had inherited from his family. It looks very funny, but it's so perfectly balanced that he could fly off in any direction he wanted, and in dealing with snakes, this is an advantage. He rocked back and forth, looking for a good place to hold. Karate struck. Rikki jumped sideways, and the wicked little dusty head lashed right near his shoulder. Teddy shouted to the house, "Come look, our mongoose is killing a snake!" And Rikki-Tikki heard a scream from Teddy's mother. His father ran out with a stick, and by the time he came up, Rikki-Tikki had sprung, jumped on the snake's back, bitten as high as he could, and rolled away. That bite paralyzed Karate, and Rikki-Tikki was just going to eat him from tail to head after the custom of his family when he remembered that a big meal makes a slow mongoose. He went away for a dust bath under the bushes while Teddy's father beat the dead snake. "What's the use of that?" thought Rikki-Tikki. "I've already settled it." Then Teddy's mother picked him up and hugged him, saying that he had saved Teddy's life. Rikki-Tikki did not understand the fuss. Teddy's mother might as well just have hugged Teddy for playing in the mud. Rikki was thoroughly enjoying himself. That night at dinner, walking among the glasses on the table, he could have stuffed himself with good things, but did not. Though it was very pleasant to be petted, he remembered Nag and Nagina, and from time to time he would give his little war cry, "Rikki-Tikki-Tikki-Tikki-Tick." Teddy carried him to bed and insisted that Rikki-Tikki sleep under his chin, but as soon as Teddy was asleep, he went for his nightly walk around the house, and in the dark he ran up against Chuchundra, the muskrat, creeping against the wall. Chuchundra is a scared little beast. He whimpers and cheeps all night, trying to make up his mind to run into the middle of the room, but he never gets there. "Don't kill me," said Chuchundra. "Rikki-Tikki, don't kill me." "Do you think a snake killer kills muskrats?" asked Rikki-Tikki scornfully. "Those who kill snakes get killed by snakes," said Chuchundra. "And how am I sure that Nag won't mistake me for you some dark night?" "There's no danger," said Rikki-Tikki. "Nag is in the garden, and you don't go there." "My cousin the rat told me," said Chuchundra, and then he stopped. "Told you what?" "Hush! Nag is everywhere, Rikki-Tikki. Can't you hear?" Rikki-Tikki listened. The house was still, but he could just hear a soft scratch, scratch sound. A noise as quiet as the footsteps of a fly on a window pane. The dry scratch of a snake's scale on the brick. "That's Nag or Nagina," he said, "and whoever is crawling into the bathroom drain. Thank you, Chuchundra." crept to Teddy's bedroom, but there was nothing there. And then to Teddy's parents' room. At the bottom of the plaster wall, there was a brick pulled out to make a drain for bathwater. Rikki-Tikki listened. He heard Nag and Nagina whispering together in the moonlight. When the house is emptied of people, said Nagina, he will go away, and then the garden will be ours again. Go in quietly, and remember that the big man who killed Karate is the first one you need to bite. Then come out, and we will hunt Rikki-Tikki. But are you sure we must kill the people, said Nag. Yes. When there are no people in the house, did we have a mongoose in the garden? As long as the house is empty, we are king and queen of the garden. Remember that as soon as our eggs hatch, our children will need room and quiet. I had not thought of that, said Nag. I will go, but there's no need to hunt for Rikki-Tikki. I will kill the man and the woman and the child if I can. Then the house will be empty and Rikki-Tikki will leave. Rikki-Tikki tingled all over with rage, and then Nag's head came through the drain, and his 5 feet of cold body followed. Angry as he was, Rikki-Tikki was frightened when he saw the size of the cobra. Nag raised his head and looked into the bathroom, and Rikki-Tikki could see the eyes glittering in the dark. When Karate was killed, the man had a stick, said the snake. But when he comes to bathe in the morning, he won't have it. I'll wait until he comes here. Nagina, do you hear me? I'll wait until daytime. There was no answer, so Rikki-Tikki knew that Nagina had gone away. Nag coiled himself down, coil by coil, around the bottom of the water jar that was used to fill the bath. Rikki-Tikki stayed as still as death. After an hour, he began to move muscle by muscle toward the jar. Nag was asleep, and Rikki-Tikki looked at him, wondering how to attack. If I don't break his back at the first jump, thought Rikki-Tikki, he can still fight, and if he fights, oh... It must be the head, he decided finally, and I must not let go. Then he jumped. As he bit, Rikki-Tikki braced his back against the water jar to hold down the snake's head. Then he was battered back and forth as a toy is shaken by a dog, back and forth, up and down, and around in circles, but he held onto the snake's body, whipped across the floor, and banged against the side of the bathtub. He closed his jaws tighter and tighter, for he was sure he would be banged to death, and for the honor of his family, he wanted to be found with his teeth locked. He was dizzy, aching, and felt shaken to pieces when something went off like a thunderclap just behind him, and red fire singed his fur. Teddy's father had been awakened by the noise, and he fired a shotgun into Nag. Rikki-Tikki held on with his eyes shut, for now he was sure he was dead. But the man picked him up and said, "It's the mongoose again. The little guy has saved our lives now." When morning came, Rikki-Tikki was very stiff, but well pleased with himself. Now I have Nagina to deal with, and she will be worse than 5 Nags. And there's no knowing when eggs will hatch, so I must go see Darzy. Without waiting for breakfast, Rikki-Tikki ran to the thorn bush where Darzy was singing a song of triumph at the top of his lungs. The news of Nag's death was all over the garden because his body had been seen put in the garbage heap. "Oh, you stupid tuft of feathers," said Rikki-Tikki. "Is this the time to sing?" "Nag is dead, dead, dead," said Darzy. The valiant Rikki-Tikki caught him by the head and held tight. The man bought the bang stick, and Nag broke into 2 pieces. "He will never eat my babies again." "You're safe enough in your nest there," said Rikki-Tikki, "but it's a war down here for me. Stop singing this minute." "For the great Rikki-Tikki's sake, I will stop," said Darzy. "What is it, O killer of the terrible Nag?" "Where is Nagina?" "On the garbage heap by the stables, mourning for Nag, great Rikki-Tikki of the white teeth." "Never mind my white teeth. Do you know where she keeps her eggs?" "In the melon bed on the end of the wall where the sun strikes early all day. Rikki-Tikki, you're not going to eat her eggs." "Not eat exactly, no. Darzy, can you fly off to the stables and pretend your wing is broken and let Nagina chase you back to this bush? I must get into the melon bed, and if I were there now, she'd see me." Darzy knew that Nagina's children were born in eggs like his own, so he didn't think it was fair to kill them. But his wife was a smart bird, and she knew that cobra eggs meant young cobras later on. So she flew from the nest and left Darzy to keep the babies warm. She flew in front of Nagina and cried out, "My wing is broken. The boy in the house threw a stone at me and broke it." Nagina lifted her head and hissed, "You've picked a bad place to be lame in." And she moved toward the bird, slipping along the dust. "The boy broke it with a stone," cried Darzy's wife. Well, it may please you to know that when you're dead, I will deal with him. But tonight, before tonight, the boy in the house will lie very still. Now, what's the use of running away? I'm sure to catch you. Darcy's wife fluttered on, never leaving the ground, and Nagina slithered faster. Rikki-Tikki heard them going out the path, and he raced for the end of the melon patch near the wall. There, very cleverly hidden, he found 25 small eggs. I was just in time, he thought, for he could see the baby cobras curled up inside, and he knew that the minute they were hatched, they could each kill a man or a mongoose. He bit off the tops of the eggs as fast as he could, crushing the deadly snakes. At last there was only 3 eggs left. Then he heard Darcy's wife screaming, "Rikki-Tikki, I led Nagina toward the house, and she's gone onto the porch, and oh, come quickly, she means killing." Rikki-Tikki smashed 2 eggs, and with the 3rd egg in his mouth, scuttled to the porch as fast as he could. Teddy and his mother and father were at breakfast, but they were not eating anything. They were stone cold still, and their faces were pale. Nagina was coiled up within easy striking distance of Teddy's bare leg, and she was swaying back and forth, singing a song of triumph. "Son of the man who killed Nag," she hissed, "stay still. Keep very still, all 3 of you. If you move, I strike, and if you do not move, I strike. Oh, foolish people who killed my Nag." Teddy's eyes were fixed on his father, but all his father could do was whisper, "Sit still, Teddy. Don't move. Keep still." Then Rikki-Tikki came up and cried, "Turn around, Nagina, turn and fight." "All in good time," she said without moving her eyes. "I'll deal with you later. Look at your friends, Rikki-Tikki. They dare not move, and if you come a step closer, I will strike." "Look at your eggs in the melon patch," said Rikki-Tikki. "Go and look, Nagina." The snake turned half around and saw the egg. "Give it to me," she said. Rikki-Tikki held the egg. What price for a snake's head? For a young cobra, for the very last of the brood. The ants are eating all the others down by the melon patch. Nagina spun around, forgetting everything for the sake of 1 egg, and Rikki-Tikki saw Teddy's father grab Teddy by the shoulder and drag him across the table with the teacups out of reach of Nagina. "Trick, trick, trick, Rikki-Tikki," called Rikki-Tikki. "The boy is safe, and it was I that caught Nag last night in the bathroom. He threw me back and forth, but he did not shake me off. He was dead before the man killed him. I did it, Rikki-Tikki-Tikki. Come on, Nagina, come and fight." Nagina saw she had lost her chance of killing Teddy, and the egg lay between Rikki-Tikki's paws. "Give me the egg, Rikki-Tikki, and I will go away and never come back," she said. "Yes, and you'll never come back because you'll be dead. Fight, snake. The man is gone for his gun. Fight." Rikki-Tikki was bounding all around Nagina, just keeping out of reach. Nagina gathered herself together and struck out at him. Rikki-Tikki jumped up and back. Again and again she struck, and each time her head hit with a whack on the matting of the porch. Then Rikki-Tikki danced in a circle to get behind her, and Nagina spun around to face him. Rikki-Tikki had forgotten about the egg. It lay on the porch. Nagina came nearer and nearer, till at last Rikki-Tikki was taking a breath. She caught it in her mouth, turned to the steps, and flew down the path, and Rikki-Tikki behind her. Rikki-Tikki knew he must catch her, or all the trouble in the world would begin again. She headed straight for the long grass by the thorn bush, and as he was running, Rikki-Tikki heard Darcy singing his song of triumph. But Darcy's wife was smarter. She flew off her nest as Nagina came along and flapped her wings at Nagina's head. Nagina only lowered her head and went on, but that instant delay let Rikki-Tikki catch up to her, and as she plunged into the hole where she and Nag used to live, his little white teeth were clenched on her tail. Rikki-Tikki went down with her, and very few mongooses, however wise and old they may be, care to follow a cobra into its hole. It was dark in the hole, and Rikki-Tikki never knew when it might widen or give Nagina room to turn and strike. When the grass by the mouth of the hole stopped waving, Darcy said, "It's all over with Rikki-Tikki. We must sing his death song, for Nagina will surely kill him underground." So he sang a very mournful song that he had just made up. And right at the saddest part, the grass quivered again. And Rikki-Tikki dragged himself out of the hole, leg by leg, licking his whiskers. Rikki-Tikki took some dust out of his fur and sneezed. "It's all over," he said. "The snake will never come out again." And the red ants that lived between the grass heard him and began to troop down the hole to see if he spoke the truth. When Rikki-Tikki got to the house, Teddy and Teddy's mother and Teddy's father came out and almost cried over him. And that night he ate everything that was given to him, and he could eat no more. He went to bed on Teddy's shoulder, where Teddy's mother saw him when she looked in late at night. "He saved our lives," she said to her husband. "Just think, he saved all our lives." Rikki-Tikki woke with a jump, for all mongooses are light sleepers. "Oh, it's you," he said. "What are you awake for? All the cobras are dead, and if they weren't, I'm here." Rikki-Tikki had a right to be proud of himself, and he kept the garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never a cobra dared to show its head inside the walls. And that's the end. As we said before, you can find this book at the Friendswood Library at the web address and telephone number listed below. I really enjoyed reading it to you, and maybe I'll come back and read another one. Thank you for listening.